Hey guys, what is up? Rafiel coming at you with another Archetype analysis. And given the recent ban list that just dropped, with bottomless trap hole being at 3, I figured it'd be really cool to do an Archetype analysis of the trap holes. And when we talk about the trap holes, we do need to talk about, of course, the archetype that revolves around them, which is one of my favorite archetypes in the game. Been looking them up and researching them last couple of months. And they are a really cool archetype to play around with, which of course are the Traptrix. So guys, please feel free to like and subscribe to the channel and leave some comments and let me know how I'm going on the videos. I will be doing my Cyber Dragon analysis very, very soon for you guys, so please stay tuned for that. So without any further ado, let us get into the Traptrix. So the 5 main deck Traptrix monsters are all level 4 Earth monsters with attack and defense adding up to 2800. They all share the effect of being unaffected by the effects of normal hull trap cards. Apart from that, they all have a unique effect, which we will go through. So first up is Traptrix Atrax. She has, her own effect is you can activate whole normal trap cards from your hand. The activation and effects of normal trap cards activated on your side of the field cannot be negated. Works really well with any single trap hole card you want. As well as that, she does work really well with cards like Mirror Force and stuff like that, which you can activate on your field and your opponent can't negate them. She also does have the highest attack points of any of the main deck of any of the Traptrix monsters, making her a decent beta, so running her at 1 to 2 is pretty good. Next up we have Traptrix Edenia. It's also worth noting, of course, that whilst Traptrix Atrax is an insect, Edenia is a plant. She shares the effect of being unaffected by whole traps, and when she is normal summoned, you can target one Traptrix monster in your graveyard and special summon it in defense mode. And when she is special summoned, you get to target one whole normal trap card in your graveyard and set it. Unfortunately, if it's not activated by the end of your opponent's next turn, you have to banish it, and you can only use that effect once per turn. However, the first effect does not specify once per turn, so if you can turbo out a bunch of these, you can make some plays pretty easily. Next up, we have Traptrix Mantis. Traptrix Mantis is their newest monster who basically came out of nowhere. She adds some much needed deck thinning for the deck, given that she's able to search any Traptrix monster when normal summoned. She's again shares the effect of being unaffected by normal hull trap cards, and once per turn as the quick effect, you get to target one set spell or trap you control, bounce it to your hand, and then set another one from your hand. This combos really well with Traptrix Edenia, which means you can set, you can bounce the set spell or the set trap card you just back to your hand, so it won't get banished. Really, really good. And another thing that's really good about Edenia is the fact that all the Traptrix monsters are level 4 Earth, meaning that you get a free Link 2 or a free 2 material rank 4 XYZ. Really, really good. Next up we have Traptrix Mole. So Mole is an insect, and it has the second highest attack of all the main deck Traptrix monsters. It shares the effect of being unaffected by hull traps, and when it's normal summoned, you get to search your deck for a hull trap card and add it to your hand. However, it has to be a normal hull, and there are hull trap cards in the game that aren't normal, such as Pendulum Hole and Chaos Trap Hole. And when it is special summoned, not just from the graveyard, but when it's special summoned, you can target one set spell trap your opponent controls, special summon it. This card is a really good target for your Edenia, as you get to special summon it if it's in your graveyard, get an MST, and then go straight into a Link 2 or a rank 4. Really, really strong. Really, really good combo. Their final main deck monster is Traptrix Nemesis, and she has the highest defense of any of the Traptrix main deck monsters. She again shares the effect of being unaffected by hull traps, and if you activate a whole normal trap card except during the damage step, you can add to your hand or special summon a Traptrix monster, but you can only use it once per turn. The biggest downside for Nemesis is she has 2000 defense and 800 attack. And you can't summon in face-up defense position, obviously, unless with card effects, but cards like Treacherous Sacred Tree and Lone Fire Blossom, and Back to the Front as well, work really well, and Monster Reborn if you choose to play it. She's also another good way to summon out your Murmalo to get that MST effect. Their boss monster is Traptrix Rafflesia, and she was actually splashed a lot in rank 4 decks back in the day, because she was generic as fuck. And while she's on the field, she has unaffected by trap effects while she's an XYZ material. Traptrix monsters you control except herself cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. Your opponent cannot target Traptrix monsters you control except herself with card effects. So she works really well at protecting other Traptrix monsters and works really well as a target for Torrential Tribute given that she's already unaffected by card effects. If she has an XYZ material, meaning you can just wipe your opponent's board, and she protects your other Traptrix monsters from being destroyed as well. And then the main reason why people play her is once per turn, you can detach one XYZ material and mill a Trapple card from your deck that meets its activation conditions, and her effect becomes that. Unfortunately, this doesn't count as activating the trap hole, so this won't trigger Nemesis's effect, unfortunately, but she's still insanely good, and her artwork is adorable and features the other Traptrix monsters with the exception of Mantis. Now we're going to move into the trap holes themselves, and we're going to talk about some of the reasons why I would play or not play them in a Traptrix deck, as this is what we're basically talking about. So first off, we have Acid Trap Hole. So you can target one face-down defensive monster on the field, flip it face up, then destroy it if its defense is 2,000 or less, or return it face down if its defense is higher. Given that no one sets cards in defense mode anymore, this card is incredibly outdated, sadly, and we wouldn't play it. Next up, we have Adhesion Trap Hole. When your opponent summons a monster or monsters, halve those monsters' original attack. This card is actually good, except for the fact that if your opponent's summoning monsters, they're going to go into something bigger, and chances are, even if you halve their boss monster, they'll probably be able to go into something else, and it's probably, even if they don't, it's probably unaffected by card effects, so you won't be able to do much, unfortunately, there. Next up, we have the Bottomless Trap Hole, Kicking of the Devil. This is obviously one of the best Trap Hole cards, which is one of the only ones that was limited, and now it's at 3, so Traptrix decks are easily going to run 2 to 3 of this card. When your opponent summons a monster or monsters with 1,500 or more attack, destroy them and banish them instead of sending them to the graveyard. Insanely good. We can play this from the deck. We can search it. Why wouldn't we play 2 to 3? We're going to play 2 minimum. Why don't we play 3? 3 could get bricky, get pretty cloggy, but it just hits so much. But a lot of playmakers these days do have less than 1,500 attack, but running this deck card at 2 at least is a must-have in all Traptrix decks. As well as that, the only downside is if the monster is destroyed by card effect, gets your opponent plus, it will activate. If it's destroyed inside the graveyard, it won't activate. So it has its minuses, but its positives weigh its minuses, especially in this deck. Next up, we have Break Off Trap Hole. This is the newest trap hole in the TCG. We'll be going over the newest card in the OCG very soon. So when a link monster is link summoned to destroy all monsters on the field that are not linked. So if your opponent decides to summon a link monster and have monsters on their field that are not linked to it, you get to destroy it. As well as that, if they do have a link monster and it doesn't point to anything, it does not count as linked, so you get to destroy that as well. And remembering, of course, that all your Traptrix monsters are unaffected by the effects of whole normal trap cards, meaning you don't even need a link monster to get this card to work and protect your own monsters. Really strong, so you probably want to play it at least 1, maybe 2, depending on what you're going up against, or you could easily side it out for a different trap hole, depending on what you're going up against. Next up, we have Deep Duct Trap Hole. So when a level 5 or higher effect monsters is special summoned, banish that level 5 or higher effect monsters. This card used to be amazing, it's just a victim of the times. XYZ monsters and link monsters don't have levels, so this card is a side deck at 1 at most. The artwork is hilarious at Goyo Guardian being banished, perhaps representing the ban list back in the day where he was banned. Next up, we have the Different Dimension Trap Hole. When your opponent sets exactly 1 monster and no other cards, target that set monster and monster you control, destroy them, and if you do, banish them. Again, no one really sets monsters anymore, and the fact that you have to destroy both monsters to banish them is not going to go off for you because your Traptrix monsters are unaffected by trap holes. Next up, we have the Double Trap Hole. If your opponent special summons a monster in defense position, banish those monsters that were summoned and are currently in defense position. So this is one of the better trap hole, one of the better defense mode trap holes, as it doesn't specify set or face down. So it works decently against pendulum monsters, so it might be a decent side against pendulum decks, but we just have to wait and see how we go. Next up, we have the Floodgate Trap Hole. So when your opponent summons a monster or monsters, change them to face down defense position, and then monsters changed by this effect cannot change their battle positions. This card used to be so much better before link monsters came in because it would stop your opponent flat. It was a decent flood. It was a fantastic Floodgate. It's still pretty good in the deck as you can hit their materials to stop them from XYZ summoning, Synchro summoning, or Link summoning, as they can't do it face down monsters. But you will need to rely on something that can attack directly, like Heartland Draco, which will probably be in your extra deck to deal with something like that. Because as soon as you attack them, flip them face up, they can use their effects again. It's still decent to run at least 1 or 2 in the deck, but it's better in decks like Amazoness or Toons, which have either attack directly or piercing effects. Next up, we have the Giant Trap Hole. So when 2 or more monsters are special summoned at the same time, destroy all monsters on the field. So if you run like Soul Charge or something and you summon, you know, 2 or more Traptrix, you can activate this and blow up your opponent's board. Or if they use Soul Charge and summon 2 monsters, you can play this and blow up their board. Remember, of course, your board is unaffected, so this card is not bad. Now we have the new trap hole in Flames of Destruction called the Network Trap Hole. So I believe it's when a monster is special summoned from the extra deck or the graveyard, banish it face down. Pretty strong, and main reason why Monster Reborn I'm not really worried about coming back, because I'll just play this and they activate their Monster Reborn. Since it doesn't negate the summon, it just banishes it. And that's what makes the trap holes so good, is that they don't negate summons, so the monsters still hit the field, and then you just banish them when they hit the field, so or deal with them when they hit the field. Next up, we have the original trap hole itself, the trap hole. When your opponent normal or flip summons 1 monster with 1,000 or more attack, target that monster and destroy it. I mean, it's the original trap hole. It's terrible. But you can run it at 1 if you want, just for nostalgia. I mean, it's a trap. It's a trap hole, so it's up to you guys if you want to run it. I'll probably run it at 1 just for memes and nostalgia, but yeah, it's not really going to do anything for you these days, unfortunately. It gets too slow. The game's too fast. Next we have the Trap Hole of Spikes. When a monster that was normal or special summoned this turn declares an attack, destroy that attacking monster, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to half the original attack of the monster. That's pretty good, if only half the monsters in the game weren't unaffected by card effects. So, but for the monsters that are affected by card effects, this card's pretty strong, because chances are if they're going to special summon out a big monster, which is what you want to use this on, they're going to attack with it straight away. So this card's pretty decent at least 1, and remembering of course we can search everything. Yeah, but 1 or 2 copies of this might be good. You could even probably side it as well. Where would the Traptrix monsters be without their own trap hole? And they probably have the most unique trap hole of the entire trap hole arsenal. When a monster that was special summoned this turn activates its effect on your opponent's side of the field, negate the effect, and if you do, destroy it. It's very situational because it can only activate the turn that they special summon the monster and they use its effect. It's kind of, or you can use it on yours, but it has to activate its effect on your opponent's side of the field. You'd at least be running it at 1 because it is a Traptrix card. I mean, I'm probably going to run it at 2 in my deck because I love the artwork, I love the theme of it. And it is a Traptrix card, and I want to build pure Traptrix. It is worth running at least 1, obviously, because like chances are if they are going to special summon the monster, they are going to use its effect. So it is handy to use. But running any more than 2 can get bricky because it can fail. It can brick pretty quickly if they special summon the monster and don't use the effect. Because chances are if you are playing Traptrix, they probably are expecting this card, so they can easily play around it. Next, we have the Timespace Triple. So when your opponent special summon a monster or monsters from the hand or the extra deck, shuffle all that monsters into the deck, then you lose 1,000 for each one. This is a really good anti-pendulum card, because they're going to pendulum summon from hand and from grave. But again, if you're playing Traptrix, they're predicting you're going to play trap holes, so they're going to play around it. So they're going to summon like 1 from their hand and then 1 from the extra deck, or they're going to like break it up. But it can be really good if your opponent like plays a Soul Charge. This card can like literally reverse a Soul Charge immediately. Remembering being careful, of course, that some cards can activate their effects or can be searched out again if they're in the deck, but it all depends on the deck, and we'll see how it go. But this card is still worth running it at least 1, or maybe and siding a second one just in case, depending on what you go up against. It is still worth considering to run the deck because, again, life points don't really mean anything unless you are relying on your judgments, your warnings, and your strikes. Because remember, of course, judgment does cost you half your life points to negate something, whereas this deck doesn't negate. This deck is more consistent at negating summons without paying huge cost. Not negating summons, sorry, at removing monsters from the field without huge costs like half your life points. So this card is actually decently worth running. Next up, we have the Treacherous Trap Hole. So this is a very good stall turn 1 play with your Murmello. So your Murmello, if you bricked, you'd summon this guy out, and you would search for Treacherous, and Treacherous can only activate if you have no other traps in your graveyard, and you get to target 2 monsters on the field and destroy them. Of course, targeting your Murmello is perfectly fine. He just won't be destroyed, and they'll lose their monster. Or if they choose to summon out 2 monsters, you can blow up 2 of theirs. So this is a really good card to run with this guy, and especially if you're using Edenia to bring back on your traps from grave, you can, and you have none in graveyard after that, you can use your Treacherous Trap Hole then as well. This card has got its very specific uses, very situational, so you wouldn't run it at more than one. Next up, we have the Void Trap Hole. So this is the last normal trap hole currently available to us. Remembering, of course, that Chaos Trap Hole is a counter trap, so it isn't runnable in the deck. It is, but it doesn't. It isn't playable. It isn't usable through Rafflesia, and it isn't searchable through Vermello. So when your opponent special summons a monster or monsters with 2,000 or more attack, negate the effects of one of those monsters with 2,000 more attack and destroy it. It's good, but it only hits one monster. So that's probably why you really wouldn't play it at more than one. And you'd have to make sure you were really ready to use it. So that's it for all our trap holes and our Traptrix monsters. And now we're going to take a look at some of the cards that you can use to kind of attempt to speed up the deck. But because the deck is quite slow. So starting off, of course, the card I've been mentioning quite a bit is the Treacherous Sacred Tree. So if this card is sent to the graveyard, you get to add a Treacherous card from your deck to your hand, except Treacherous Sacred Tree, blah blah blah, we don't care about that. What we care about is that you contribute one Earth Insect type monster, special summon one level 4 or lower Earth Plant type monster from your deck. Or you contribute one Earth Plant type monster, special summon one level 4 or lower Earth type insect monster from your deck. So this card basically lets us trade in any of our plants, Traptrix monsters, for an insect type Traptrix monster. So this card actually does work really well, so you probably want to run this at 1 or 2 because it does give you some decent decent floating. Of course, we are playing plants, so we will be playing Lone Flyer Blossom. You can tribute one face-up plant-type monster, special summon one plant-type monster from your deck. So it does say 1 plant per turn, so I believe some people told me you could go in Lone Flyer into Lone Flyer. You can't. The main target, if you're not going into a Traptrix monster, is probably going to be your Orphis Scorpio. And then, of course, you can discard a card and special summon your Darlington Cobra. And then you can search for a Poly, or you can go into their Fusion if you want. I like playing these guys just to thin my deck out. I don't really use the Fusion because I'm trying to keep as many pure traps as possible for meme purposes. But it's up to you. The combo does work decently well. Of course, Imperial Order and Anti-Spell. In my build, I'm playing as many traps as I can. So Imperial Order negates spells, and Anti-Spell stops them, forces them to be set first. So it can really slow down your opponent, especially because you're going to slow down their monsters with your trap holes, and you're going to slow down their spells with these. You don't have anything to negate your traps, but remembering, of course, that your Traptrix monsters are unaffected by the effects of traps and can't be targeted by card effects if you've got Rafflesia out. Back to the front works really well at special summoning monsters in defense mode. So, and bringing back any of your special summon effects, you get a free MST if you bring back Murmalo, you get a free Trap Hole if you bring back Edenia, and then bringing back Nepethys as well lets you have a 2,000 defense point wall and some effects if you use your Trap Holes. Obviously, your best Link monster at the moment is Mrs. Radiant because it does give them all extra attack points, and if it's destroyed, similar to Amazonas, it works well with Amazonas as well. You get to add a Traptrix back to your hand, so you can add back a Mantis to your hand and search out for another monster. You can add a Murmalo back to your hand and search out for another Hole Trap, or even add Edenia back and get another special summon, and then potentially go into another Radiant. The only problem is going to a Radiant, you don't really have that much recovery with Traptrix, so you have to be careful how you use it. I would love them to get something like Hysteric Party, discard one card, discard trap, special summon as many Traptrix as possible from grave. That would be pretty insane. So then moving on to some, of course, Arrivals, if you want to play spells, is a decent card as well. Obviously, your main draw card will be Pot of Desires because you don't really have too many combo cards in this, so you can get away with that. Arrivals works really... Arrival Arrivals works really well. So during the battle phase, immediately after it resolves, you can special summon normal summon one monster. So this is really good if you choose to normal summon your Murmalo. You can set this card and then, or even use it in the turn to get out a Mantis and then thin your deck 2 cards. So it's actually really decent to run in the deck. And then also you can get away with playing Pod Duality as well pretty early on in the game, because even if you're running this card as well, you'll just be normal summoning, not special summoning. You've got, because you're playing level 4s, you can, obviously you're running Rafflesia, you can go into Utopia Beyond if you want. It's still a decent card for rank 4 decks. You don't see it as much anymore, but it's still pretty cool to run. You've got Tornado Dragon if you need the extra back row removal, because Murmalo is kind of slow. Heartland Draco works really well if you play Floodgate because it can attack directly. It's also an Earth as well, so it will get powered up from your Mrs. Radiant. Ragnar Zero, because I think because it's Rio Castle's card, and I refuse to... I must, because I have to play it in basically any rank 4 deck, because Rio is my favourite character from Arc 5. I mean, you're probably going to be one smashing as many Link monsters as you can. You can play the Predator Plant Fusion monster as well. I mean, I want to play Malevolent Sin, because there are spiders featured. I mean, Atrax is based on the Funnel Web Spider, and this is the only spider you can easily play in the Traptrix without playing rank ups. It has decent effects. You can banish cards, and it can get extra levels as well. So it can go up to a rank, get extra ranks. So it can go up to a rank 7, and it gains some more power. Of course, Castell, and then you've got Abyss Dweller as well. So. And there's a few other, like, you can run Grand Pulse and stuff as well. There's lots of options you can run with them, because they do have, so you can't, sorry, not Grand Pulse, sorry, you only have option to run rank 4s in the deck. Of course, running Scapegoat and stuff to go into Firewalls, anything you want. Your generic Link stuff should work perfectly fine with this. But most, like, honestly, for my deck build, I am trying to plan on just playing the Traptrix and locking out my opponent as quickly as possible. So, guys, you could even, troll them and put set rotation in, give yourself some random field spell, and give them Secret Village, just to lock them out of playing spells even faster. But it's up to you guys. There's a lot of options you can use for the Traptrix, and there's, as you saw, there are so many trap holes you can choose from. But anyway, guys, that's just my Archetype analysis and some of the cards I think that you can use for them. If they were to get anything, I feel like that trap hole that summons them back, or the Link monster that gives them, gives you some salvation as well. I don't see it coming, but then again, Mantis came out of nowhere. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you soon for my next video.